You're listening to The Bible Guys, a podcast where a couple of friends talk about the Bible in fun and practical ways.
Good morning, good morning.
Here we are.
We talk the whole night through. Good morning. Good morning to you and you and you.
Yeah, good job, Chris.
Thank you so much.
Man, oh man,
That's
we
my
were
little
waiting
jingle.
and waiting. We were wishing upon a star.
I was wishing upon a star.
that you would sing to us this week.
That's so funny.
And you did it. Here we are, the middle of the week.
Yes.
It's perfect.
It's hump day.
I know, perfect. Right here.
Yes.
Thank you, Chris.
Oh, you're welcome, Jeff.
Well, Chris,
you continually say that people like it.
they love
so
it.
Whatever.
Oh,
there's a handful of people.
Yeah, we regularly get an email or a text or something about it.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, today we're diving into Jonah, the brand new book of the Bible for us.
Brand new.
In this
just
study.
written. Hot off the presses.
This just in. No, I mean new for this
New
study.
for us. Because we've been in 1st, 2nd, and Kings and 1st and 2nd Chronicles for
a while.
like 100 years or something.
Yeah. And are we going to go back after Jonah?
Yeah, well, yeah, probably.
Probably, right?
I'd imagine.
Okay, so because again, we're doing this chronologically.
Yep.
So before we dive into Jonah today, we have a segment, and this is one of my favorite segments, and it is Would You Rather?
Okay,
and
these are fun.
Yeah,
Let's see. What do they say?
I just, I love the fact that it's two hard choices.
Okay.
So number one, would you rather, Jeff, be a great chef, who loves his job, or have a great chef cook for you?
Is being the great chef his job, or he's a great chef and he loves his job? Because that's me.
It says, be a great chef. Oh, I see. Who loves his job.
Yeah. I'm not a great chef. I
That
cook
is
a little.
very funny, though. That's
I
the
cook a
lawyer
little.
in your little head.
That's right.
Yeah.
Who loves his job? Which job? That's the question, right?
Did you ever see Christopher Walken in that clip of that movie where he goes, so let me get this straight. He goes, if I do between 300 and 400 push-ups, I get all the money? And this big group of men's like, yeah. And they lay down all this money. And he gets down and he does 4 push-ups. And he takes the money and they go, wait, old man, you said between 300 and 400 push-ups. He goes, right, between 300 and 400 push-ups. And then he took the money and he left.
Because he did 4,
Right.
which is between 3
Right.
and 400.
Which is what you just did.
That's exactly what I just did. Yeah. So, or have a great chef cook for you. I think, I don't know. What would you say?
Well, there's no doubt for me. I'd love to have a great chef cook for me.
Yeah.
You kidding me? It's like the dream of my life.
I love it. I love going to a good restaurant and having a good meal, but I also love cooking a good meal.
You gotta pick one, Jeff.
Well, I think I'm going to have it. I like the job I have, so I don't want a new job. So
Okay,
I'm
so
going to
you're
have
gonna
a chef cook for me. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
But I love cooking.
Okay. All right.
Would you rather face the heat of the desert or the cold of the Arctic?
The heat of the desert, which is pretty brutal,
Yes.
or the cold of the Arctic.
Yes.
Ooh, that's pretty tough.
Well, I kind of faced this a couple of days ago.
You were in the Arctic?
No, I was in
Never
I was in the
surrender.
desert. It was 100 degrees, 99 and 100 degrees every day.
Yeah.
I flew home, and when I landed, it was 17 degrees outside when I walked out the door of the airport.
Okay. All right. Not quite the
Right?
Arctic, but
Yeah, not quite, but it was cold.
Literally the
it was
desert.
cold. It was cold. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So I've heard that when you get cold enough, you don't really feel anything.
There's not much more.
Yeah. But I would definitely, for me, I would say the heat of the desert, I guess.
Yeah.
As long as you have water.
I was going to say, it doesn't say that you can't manage it.
Right.
So you're either just managing the heat of the desert or managing the cold of the Arctic.
Yeah, and I think between those two, I would rather manage the heat of the desert.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I've done it enough that I think I don't have a lot of experience in the Arctic. Just we live in Michigan. Sometimes we get Arctic blasts.
Right.
Yeah.
Ooh, Arctic blast. Number 3, Taco Bell. Would you rather live in a castle with secret passages or a modern mansion with all the latest technology?
No brainer.
What?
Modern mansion.
This is very hard for me.
Yeah.
Because I
with all the latest technology?
I know, but it doesn't say that you can't put some technology in the secret castle.
That's true.
So there's the lawyer in my head too.
That's kind of cool. Secret Castle's kind of cool.
I love the Secret Castle thing, man.
Yeah.
I love it like nobody's business.
All right, you get it. I'll come over to your place and visit.
I'm going to say Secret Castle.
Okay.
Yep.
Would you rather have ears that record everything you hear or eyes that record everything you see?
Ooh. But wait a minute. Does that mean that you have no sound on the recording of the eyes?
I don't know.
That's what it sounds like.
It didn't say that.
That's
No,
what
it doesn't exclude it. It's just saying you remember everything you see or you remember everything you hear.
But the distinguish is audio or video. That's what it's saying.
I don't think so. I think it's the fact that it's recording everything.
Well, then you have the audio. If your video has audio.
Well, she didn't think it through.
No, that's not true.
She does not exclude anything.
It's the intent, Jeff.
Okay.
So I'm going to say video anyway.
Video.
I'm going to say video.
Well, it's because you already have ears that record everything you say. Right? Zarbaugh can pull out things from obscure conversations from like 3 years ago and say, no, I said this, and then you said this, and then I said this. Right? You already have that.
Yeah. Well, it depends on the topic,
Yeah.
but yes. My wife would say I'm terrible at the things that really matter.
And you're selective in what you remember?
Right. Correct. Selective. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think I go with the eyes too. I don't know. Maybe ears. No, ears. I would have ears that record everything.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so.
Audio. Wow.
Okay. Would you rather your life be a game of Sims or your life be the Truman Show?
Remind me what Sims is again?
Sims is like a video game where you're kind of, I don't know, developing society, building cities.
Like you build, SimCity.
Yeah, Sims.
Yeah. SimCity, Sim Zoo, and all that stuff. Okay, would you rather be the life?
It's like where you're the one controlling it. So the one, Sims, is you're controlling society. The Truman Show is
Everybody's controlling you.
You're living in the show. Yeah. So you're controlling the show or living in the show?
Well, there's no question. Would you rather be in control or be controlled?
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather be in control.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sims.
Okay.
I mean, is there anybody who'd like to say, I'd like to be fooled by the planet?
Wake up and discover you're in the Truman Show?
Yeah. That you're the star of a fake life?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. I mean, who would vote for that?
Talking about waking up and being the star of the story.
Ooh.
Jonah
wakes up one day
and God says, Jonah, I got a big plan for you. We're going to write a whole book about your story.
Wow. And Jonah had no idea when he woke up that he was going to be the star
he had no idea.
of his own story.
He had no idea.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're jumping into the book of Jonah today.
That was pretty good off the top of your head.
It was close.
Yeah, it was good.
All right.
I liked it.
This is a pretty bad transition. So Jonah chapter 1, verse 1. We're going to read the whole chapter. And it says, the Lord gave this message to Jonah, son of Amittai. Get up and go to the great city of Nineveh. See, he got up in the morning, remember?
He did.
Yeah.
He woke up.
Announce my judgment against it because I have seen how wicked its people are. But Jonah got up and went in the opposite direction to get away from the Lord. He went down to the port of Joppa, where he found a ship leaving for Tarshish. He bought a ticket and went on board, hoping to escape from the Lord by sailing to Tarshish. But the Lord hurled a powerful wind over the sea, causing a violent storm that threatened to break the ship apart. Fearing for their lives, the desperate sailors shouted to their gods for help and threw the cargo overboard to lighten the ship. But all this time, Jonah was sound asleep down in the hold, so the captain went down after him. How can you sleep at a time like this? He shouted. Get up and pray to your God. Maybe he will pay attention to us and spare our lives. Then the crew cast lots to see which of them had offended the gods and caused the terrible storm. When they did this, the lots identified Jonah as the culprit. Why has this awful storm come down on us? They demanded. Who are you? What is your line of work? What country are you from? What's your nationality? Jonah answered, I am a Hebrew, and I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the land. The sailors were terrified when they heard this, for he had already told them he was running away from the Lord. Oh, why did you do it? They groaned. Since the storm was getting worse all the time, they asked him, what should we do to you to stop this storm? Throw me into the sea, Jonah said, and it will become calm again. I know that this terrible storm is all my fault. Instead, the sailors rowed even harder to get the ship to the land, but the stormy sea was too violent for them, and they couldn't make it. Then they cried out to the Lord, Jonah's God. O Lord, they pleaded, don't make us die for this man's sin, and don't hold us responsible for his death. O Lord, you have sent this storm upon him for your own good reasons. Then the sailors picked Jonah up, threw him into the raging sea, and the storm stopped at once. The sailors were awestruck by the Lord's great power, and they offered him a sacrifice and vowed to serve him. Now the Lord had arranged for a great fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was inside the fish for 3 days and 3 nights.
Boy, talk about a lot happening from the start of the chapter to the end of the chapter.
17 verses.
Right. That is a lot. And I always think of I think I told you this a long time ago, but there was a college kid that had written a song by himself. So the only person that knows this tune is like me and this college kid and probably like my brother Jimmy. But so his music was never popular. But he got up and he sang it for the group, and I still remember it. And he goes, Jonah, oh Jonah, when will you ever learn? The plan of God Almighty is not a thing to spurn. You can, You can't get away from God no matter how you try. So do His will, His plan fulfill, and you'll be a happy guy.
That's a good one.
It's so lame.
That's a good one.
But I always think of that when I think of Jonah for some reason, because I bought his cassette tape and we played it.
Cassette tape.
Yep. This college kid. Anyway.
That was happening.
Yep, it was. So, listen, here's a couple of different things about Jonah. So Jonah is trying to sail from Joppa to Tarshish, which is about 1,200 miles west of where Joppa is. So he's trying to get in the boat, and he's trying to go west to get away from Nineveh, because Nineveh is about 600 miles northeast of where he is. So if you think about it, Tarshish was northwest. He's really like running in the opposite direction, right?
Right.
And he's going by sea, right? He's trying to separate, himself, through the Mediterranean Sea. He's trying to put as much distance in between him and where God is telling him to go. And the Nineveh was a very prominent city and very important city in the Assyrian Empire. And Jonah had grown up hating the Assyrians, and the Assyrians actually just a few years before this had oppressed the Israelites. So I remember preaching on this one time just recently, actually. We just did a series like 5-6 months ago, and I remember thinking this would have been like just after a few years after 9/11, to go in the middle of Times Square and to tell a Christian who lived there, hey, why don't you go into, find the Arabic, Islamic, radicalists, and go give the gospel to them. Right. And that's a pretty extreme example.
Go find ISIS.
Go find ISIS. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, the atrocities of the Assyrians were probably that extreme.
Yeah,
right?
they really were.
They slaughtered people, women, children. Yeah. They took spoils and oppression and wars and things like that. So, I mean, it would have been pretty similar. So we can't quite imagine the hatred that Jonah had, because we're like, what? Do you have like, are you racist? Are you a bigot? No, he had legitimate disdain toward the Assyrians, and not only that, but if you're an Israelite who loves God, which of course Jonah does and did and does, he's proven to be a person who loves and recognizes God. And if you love God, then you detest their idolatrous practices, right? So they were the worst sinners ever. Even God says that they are, right?
They're some of the worst. Yeah.
They're some of the worst. Mm-hmm. And so Jonah is committing the sin of saying they're not worthy of God's grace.
Right.
That's what it is.
Right.
So it's not racism, although it is. It's a little bit of racism, but that's not the primary objection.
Yeah, I don't know that he was against them because they were Assyrian. He was against the Assyrians because they were terrifying.
That's correct.
Right?
That's a great way to say it.
So a person might be terrified to try to go, or not even want God to forgive members of ISIS.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that you're racist towards people from the Middle East.
Correct.
You just don't like ISIS so much that you want God to judge them, not set them free.
Right.
Right? And that's kind of how they would have viewed it. So Assyria at the time, this is about 50 years before Assyria became the world power. So they were ascending.
Yep.
They were becoming more and more powerful. They're to the northeast of Israel. And the people knew, man, nobody can stand before them. When they come in, they do horrific things to people. They fillet people alive. They rape the women. They burn everything. They destroy. They're horrible, horrible people. And then on top of that, their worship practices are horrible. Everything about it. So that's kind of what he's looking at there. Was I don't think I want God to forgive them.
That's right.
So Jonah. So to give you kind of an idea where Jonah fits, he's operating during the time of King Uzziah and before. And this would be in the later years of of Elisha's life.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a thing in 2 Kings that talks about there was a group of prophets. Remember that one time, the group of prophets? Very likely he was part of that group of prophets, is what the Jews believe. The Jewish people believe now.
I'm not sure I've ever had that thought.
That Jonah was part of that group of prophets that Elisha knew. Remember when Elisha was getting old and he wanted that group of prophets? So
that's interesting.
So it would have been about that same time.
Yeah.
So here's a man of God. He hears from God. He's a good guy, right?
Yep.
He's one of the heroes for God's people. And so it just happens to be this one time. He's like, I really don't want. How bad is that your one really bad behavior moment's the only thing that gets recorded for the next 2,800 years?
Right.
Right.
But it's a big one.
Yeah, it's a big one. Yeah.
And it's only big because the city of Nineveh, there's a big confrontation that's about to happen. We'll get to that in chapter 3.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a big. There's a big happening that takes place there, and so it's pretty massive. But the assignment is go.
Yeah.
That's the assignment, right?
So Nineveh was the capital city of the Assyrian Empire. Nineveh is in modern-day Mosul in Iraq today. So if you remember back a number of years ago when ISIS was destroying the gates to Nineveh there in Mosul, all the destruction, they were selling a lot of the artifacts and stuff from this great city, all that. So Mosul is where Nineveh used to be.
Wow.
And so he goes from there and instead heads to Tarshish, which is to the northwest. So there's different arguments about Tarshish. For hundreds of years, scholars said that they believe that Tarshish was Tartessos in modern-day Spain on the coast. It was a mining city. And it was like one of the farthest things that people would have known about to the west, right? You're getting right towards the entrance into the Gibraltar, and that area, they were afraid to sail past it because the storms are so big, all that kind of stuff. They believe you fall off the end of the planet. So this was about as far away as you could go. So for hundreds of years, that's what most theologians believed. There's some thought maybe Tarshish and Tarsus. Remember Paul of Tarsus?
Tarsus, yeah.
That was to the far side of Cilicia, which would be in modern-day Turkey, Greece. But it was still far to the west, almost as far to the west as he would have needed to have gone to the east to get to Nineveh. So that could be it too. Some people think, and there's some indication maybe Carthage could have been it, where Hannibal was from. Remember when Hannibal invaded Rome?
Hannibal Lecter?
No, wrong one. Hannibal was a great warrior that was able to defeat Rome. He brought the elephants and fought. You never heard? Okay. Anyways, he's one of the great warriors of history. Carthage was on the northern African coast, which was still far to the west.
Elephants.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Battle elephants. The Romans never had to deal with that before. So it's neat. They came through the mountains. They came through the Alps.
They're not very fast though, elephants.
Yeah, but they're undefeatable when you're fighting. Anyways, you're hung up on the elephants. So anyway, it was to the west, at least as far west as he needed to have gone east in order to get to Nineveh.
So the point of that was he's going to go to the end of the world as he knows it.
As much as he could. Yeah. I mean, as far away from this as possible.
Right.
And isn't it funny how, when we know what we're supposed to do and we don't want to do it, it's weird to me how often we go in exactly the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Right? The exact opposite direction. Whether, I'm not getting into specifics. I think anybody listening, you know what we're talking about. That God's drawing you one way and you're like, nope, and I'm going to go the opposite direction. We wind up making so many dumb choices running from God. So now he's on the boat. He's sleeping soundly. Right? They're in the middle of this crazy storm. And it's not like he's on an ocean liner. He's probably on a boat that's 30 feet long, 50 feet long. It's not a huge boat. And they're being battered by the sea. He's asleep down in the bottom. These pagan boat sailors come down and they roll dice, cast lots. They roll dice to try to figure out who's guilty. And the dice land on Jonah, just Jonah. And they're like, what have you done, you jerk? Because he'd already said, I'm running from God. Right. I don't know why they had to roll dice when he'd already said, I'm running from God.
Right.
But then they're like, what do we need to do?
It was sort of, they cast lots for Jesus's clothes, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So they oftentimes casting lots was a practice, but oftentimes as well, it was a way to say, okay, God, you tell us the answer, right? Like we're going to cast lots, and God, you point us to the answer. This is the only way for you to speak to us. And oftentimes, it was actually a thing.
Right.
Like God used casting lots for communicating.
Right.
And so in this case, they were like, okay, they're like, God, whoever's out there, let us know. And then God just arranged it to where he wanted those men to know, yep, it's my servant Jonah. And then Jonah knew right away. Jonah's like, this storm's because of me. You guys are victims. He said, just throw me overboard and I'm sure the storm will stop because God is, he's after me. And so, and by the way, I love how these men threw off cargo.
Yeah.
Because even though Jonah said, throw me overboard, it said they didn't want to do that.
Hey, these are good men.
Yeah, these are good men.
Yeah.
These are good men. So they decided to throw cargo over first, even though that Jonah said, if you throw me over, it'll stop.
Yeah.
So bad men would have said, okay, don't have to ask me twice.
Yeah, good is relative. They're noble.
Yeah.
Noble men. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, they did offer a sacrifice to God and offer to serve him.
Sure.
Afterwards.
After they got them praying to all their own gods.
Well,
Right.
You don't know that.
Well, so our theologian friends that are listening and say, yes, the Bible says there's none good, but they were noble.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Yep.
So semantics on the word
absolutely.
good. On the word good.
Absolutely.
Okay. But so anyway, the bottom line is so these men decide to throw him overboard, and then God calms the sea. And so put yourself in Jonah's spot at this point, right? So you're running, you're disobeying God. There's a storm that comes up. As Jonah, this is beyond coincidence. And then you say, I already know that if you throw me into the sea, it'll stop. Save yourselves. Because obviously, if sailors are fearful for their lives, that means they are going to die.
Right.
Right? And so what Jonah's saying is, the storm will stop, throw me in the sea. And Jonah's really saying, I'm going to sacrifice my life for yours.
Right.
Because after all, they're in the middle of the sea.
Mm-hmm.
So Jonah is literally very nobly, maybe he's not purely good in doing this, but how noble is it for him to sacrifice his life?
Yeah. I know, I appreciate it.
Yeah, but he's sacrificing himself.
Yeah.
And then God prepares a fish. It was a whale, I guess?
Well, it says a fish, a large fish.
Do you think it's the Loch Ness Monster?
Well, we know that the other day.
Right.
If it was blurry.
Right, right. That's right.
That's a big blurry fish came and got it.
Big blurry fish. Yeah. That's so funny.
So verse 17 is and all of chapter 2 is like really critiqued by people who don't believe the Bible. This is one of those, right? So this one and Noah
is a fable,
right,
with a lesson or a moral lesson.
This one and Noah, there's a couple of those that people go, oh, that's impossible. That's not real.
Yeah, that's deconstructed.
And so every once in a while you'll find some clever atheist or agnostic or some Discovery Channel thing going, it probably wasn't really a fish and all this stuff. There have been people who've been swallowed whole that have survived.
Yeah.
So there's that. But beyond that part of it, do you know why I believe Jonah?
Can I insert?
Go ahead.
Let me insert before we move on. Mm-hmm. There doesn't have to be a scientific way to prove that Jonah survived anyway, because you can't scientifically prove how Lazarus was raised from the dead.
Right. Sure.
So God can do whatever he wants to do.
Well, the God of the universe who made, the whole universe can go ahead and manage a fish if he needs to. So there's that part of it. Miracles are not a problem for people who believe in a creator. I don't understand why that's an issue for Christians.
Right.
If you believe that the creator made monkeys and mosquitoes and whales and elephants, I don't know that it's hard to imagine that God could also do this thing. So miracles are not a problem for me. But whether you struggle with that part of it or not, I believe that Jonah is a true story because Jesus believed Jonah was a true story.
And he references it.
Yes.
And not only that, but he attaches it to the most important thing in the universe, which is his own death, burial, and resurrection.
That's right.
Just as Jonah was in the belly of the whale for 3 days and 3 nights, so the Son of Man will be, what is it? What's the wording?
Be in the grave.
He doesn't say in the grave, but he'll be in the belly of the earth, I think is what he says. For 3 days and 3, So, and rise on the third day. So if Jesus believes it and refers to it as a story, as a factual story, then yes, I have a tendency to believe that.
The three big ones that people kind of point at it would be creation, Noah, and Noah's flood, and Jonah. And it turns out Jesus references Adam and Eve, Noah, and Jonah.
Isn't that interesting?
Where Jesus believed them. So I believe Jesus, and Jesus believed in the Jonah story. So I think it's a legitimate thing.
I've always loved Andy Stanley's comment when he says, I believe it because Jesus believes it. He says, he goes, anybody who predicts his own death, burial, and resurrection and pulls it off, I have a tendency to believe anything he says.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I just love that comment because it's like, yeah, you should probably believe what Jesus says. Right. So yeah, it's a great thing to do is to believe that. And we're about to see that he's in there for 3 days and 3 nights with purpose.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So all right.
Don't miss tomorrow.
Don't miss tomorrow because we're talking through that.
Yeah.
Chapter 2. We'll see you hopefully then on the Bible Guys.